Hi, I'm Barry from comicpresser.com and here today to talk to you about pressing, cleaning, and profiting from that flattery. How will we do it? Well, taking a look at the Heritage Auctions Christine Farrell Complete DC Collection, which is going up for bids a couple days from now. Some of these are the rarest, highest grade, and most unique DC comics ever published. What I'm interested in, and maybe you may be too, is can there be value found by buying these books at auction, even at high prices, market value prices, heritage prices, with buyer's premiums, taxes, shipping, insurance, credit card fees? How could you still make money from these comic books besides sinking cash in and waiting to let time do its job to make the books more valuable? Okay, well, we're taking a look at the current heritage auctions sort of spread for, in this case, the most valuable books for current bids. So this Action Comics #1 Restored 6.0 happens to be the book with the highest current bid at $125,000. There are a couple days left on this auction. These numbers will certainly get much higher over time. First book of high interest, Action Comics #3. This book is this classic Leo Amelia cover. Let's get his name right. That's Leo Amelia cover. And as we can see here, our friend Kenneth really enjoyed this comic. It's certainly rare and impressive to find this book in a blue label 6.0 with white pages. That means this book is supple. It could handle pressing and cleaning pretty well, one would imagine. And it probably would respond well at the staples, often an area of fragility and challenge when you're dealing with Golden Age books. We can see that this book is quite dirty. It's got the pencil writing on it too. And the more we zoom in, the more I'm convinced that this is pencil, which means it should come off. It's possible somebody tried to do some work around here. It's a little bit faded here, but otherwise it looks pretty untouched. You can see other types of streaks of dirt and grime on the front cover, and some handling wear on the edges here. A little bit of foxing on the side here. The corners look pretty good. Again, some foxing tanning issues, and the spine looks pretty tight. We'll need to look at the grader's notes to see this was probably a split right here. So there is some fragility, and we'll have to see, could the split hold this book back really from going up? As I move to the back cover of this book, zooming in, I'm going to scan around again. I see a little bit of foxing, a small spine roll, and see some foxing on the pages. Foxing here in the corner and around the perimeter, and then just bits of foxing as we roll down the actual spine here. Harder to see if there might be a spine split on this corner. I'll zoom in as much as Heritage allows me and still really just see foxing is the primary issue. Otherwise, color looks pretty good. And then looking through the ads here, which are always a joy, I'm not sure I see anything that shows dirt, significant color breaks, or even a big crease through the artwork, which is fantastic. Now, I'm actually going to move next to the CGC Graders Notes. CGC notes for this book. We see here there is a spine split on the bottom. Everything else seems to be stain, foxing, light staining, soiling, and writing. We're not going to be able to do anything about this spine split in a blue label condition, but absolutely, we can lighten these stains, minimize the foxing, and reduce the soiling, and probably significantly reduce, if not almost totally eliminate, the pencil writing on the cover. Should that get us to a 6.5? It probably could. And so there's definitely room for improvement in this book, and begins to show how heritage auctions in general, when they take these big collections, oftentimes they're getting them graded, and maybe they're asking CGC to press the books, but CGC doesn't really do deep cleaning on these books, and they certainly only do minimal pressing from what we can tell. We go to GPA, which we're using here today to look at prices on these books. We can see that a 6.0, which is known as the court copy, sold in 2019 for $37,600. Now, of all the prices that are here, there's a more recent one at a 3.5 for this book at $14,400. Would it double? At a 6, it probably would, maybe more than, since the last price here was 37. We can see here, though, that there's really nothing above it. So if you could get this Action Comics #3 and had the 37,000 or the current price for it, including the buyer's premium and the other fees that go with it, but you could get it to a 6.5, you could be in otherwise undiscovered territory. Unless this 7.0 or another higher value book comes to market, which is probably pretty rare, getting this book at a 6 would be a true joy for sure. But cleaning and pressing, removing the soiling, eliminating or minimizing the stains and foxing, and getting that writing off the front cover or at least significantly reduced without hurting the golden age yellow would really create a value boost for this comic, which might be a 5-figure boost, probably would be. And so there's at least 5 figures to be found in this comic beyond whatever purchase price meets this 6.0 expectation. Real value to be found here for sure. Next book, Action Comics 23. Now, I like this book not because it's some super key issue in the Action Comics run, though it's among the later old Soups logo covers, but an 8.0 in an early Action Comics is pretty unheard of. So it's really, really, really exciting to see this with white pages again. So this book here, supple, is what we expect, really clean. I went through this book just on the details and really only found light soiling and staining. The corners, there's a tiny little break at the corner here, and there is a scratch. You can see the scratch here on the front cover. Maybe there's some debris in the number. But otherwise, what we're really looking at here is this dust shadow, otherwise known as a sun shadow or a light shadow, that kind of shows some tanning here on the exterior cover edge. But going around here, the corners look sharp. Small chipping here around the perimeter, but really, really, really nice, especially in this tough black, dark area on the spine. Really exciting. Back cover here also looks pretty good, except for this heavy dust shadow. Corners look good. There's really not a lot of color around any edges here, so you're not going to get heavy color breaks that would detract from the book. Could there be some challenges on the spine here? I mean, I really looked. I mean, this is where you'd expect to see tick marks and stuff. I see one small little crease here. This is what's known as a bindery tear. I don't expect this to detract much from the book's value. We see some handling, some dirt or grime here, a little bit of soiling and wear here, but this just needs cleaning, dry clean. And we don't see that staples really aren't impacted or sunken. As you can see, sometimes in the older books, it's just this heavy shadow. Okay. And this right here, that's a fingerprint or a palm print. And so when you start to see that, you get excited because these books really haven't been dry cleaned sufficiently. There's room to bump. There's room to go up. And what we're looking at here, though, is a really strong shadow that needs what we call deep cleaning or stain removal to try to get that tanning or foxing lightened or minimized. And there's a number of techniques to do that, and probably multiple techniques would be needed to kind of pull this foxing back. On the interior of this book, there could be another stripe on that side, and so that has to be treated even more gently, especially if one did not want to detach the cover while working on the book. So where's the opportunity? Well, first, let's look at the grader's notes here. We can see that really we're just looking at tanning shadow as the primary defect on this book, which we can see. It says light fraying full left of spine. I would argue that that could be handled by some ironing, and that this is the CGC scan I'm looking at now, just seeing if I get better sense of that fraying. I do see some, I guess, slight color breaking there. This could probably be ironed down, and under magnification, some of these color flecks might be found. They might be folded over, and folding some of these color flecks back and then ironing around on the spine to really minimize some of this particular defect. Could this get up to an 8.5? I think it could, though this would take some expert work. This would be hard to do in your home studio necessarily, unless you're practicing every day, which might be you. Now, if we look at the value here, what we can see here is for, I'm back in GPA now. So no 8.0 has sold. So it's somewhere between $34,800 and $72,000 if you're looking at 2020 prices. A more recent price, $40,000 for a 6.5 in 2022, and $31,000 for a 6.0 in 2023. So we're probably getting closer to $40,000 or $50,000 for this book. And if I go back to the Heritage uh, listing here, they were at $16,000 now, really $20,000 with the buyer's premium. So there's definitely room to move and really potentially room to bump. To get this to an 8.5, again, one half grade up from where it is, the old price is 72,000. You could potentially double your money on a book like this if you could successfully remove the staining and the tanning around the perimeter and get a blue label. The fascination continues with these cool books. Here's an Adventure Comics number 44, early Sandman cover. I believe this is the third Sandman cover. This book here has really the same sort of indications as some of these other books in terms of cleaning versus pressing. This book appears to have been pressed. There's certainly color breaks around the spine, some small readers creasing and wear here, but a pencil first name should absolutely be easy enough to take off this book. I noted in the graders notes, I'm jumping ahead for a minute before we scan around here, but going in the graders notes, they've noted that there's silverfish damage on this book. And so I can see here that what they're pointing to here is silverfish damage. This may not be able to come out. But when I see a cover that has this sort of browning and tanning in it, it is possible that some of this white could be lightened up a little bit using deep cleaning, light treatment, and stain transfer, so that this modeling, this patterning from the silverfish might be much harder to see. And so it won't change that there's some type of silverfish damage on the spine, which is probably right here. But it probably will improve the eye appeal of the book and certainly improve the front cover. And while that was being evened out, this other foxing that's here in the yellows could probably be lightened or removed. And that could lead to a much improved grade. Going to the back cover, this is a full color cover, so you can kind of see damage on it more and defects on it more in some cases. But we really see dirt and grime, a little bit of foxing that typically can be removed in these Golden Age books. I see what looks like to be a stacking curl. So when you see this kind of curve up here, this is kind of a dent sometimes that runs down the book because it was other books were stacked on it. So this book's probably been pressed, but there's probably room to move. Then I'm assuming this is silverfish damage, but dry cleaning and perhaps some lightening might be able to remove the visibility of this damage to minimize its impact. And that's all you really need to do to improve these grades. If we look at the graders notes again, we've got just the writing and the silverfish damage. That's our target areas of improvement for this book. But where's the value? So right now, this book at a 6.5, this 2023 sale at $48.50. So it's probably, pretty close. But you'll see that the 7.0 is a 71.30 also in that same year, just last year. So this is not quite a doubling of the money, but there's 4 figures of upside here if this book could be acquired for a similar price, improved, and remarketed, perhaps not immediately, but maybe within a year or two. Next book, All American Comics 17. So this is the second appearance of Green Lantern, and a beautiful book, in my opinion. The drawing for this book is a little clunky. The art, the Golden Age art, was not the most premium back in the day, but certainly a stunner of a cover, and maybe even more dramatic than All American 16. It has tears at the staples. It has this reader's creasing or color breaking where the book's been opened and closed. It's got some light color breaks, some small tears on the spine. So this book's not going to get to the highest grade ever. It's got some chipping around the edges. The corners still look good. Really, really nice here, though, in the toughest areas, right? The dark black, the red. You can see that there is a color break here. There's been a crease. Whether or not it goes all the way here and here, I'm not really sure. We'll look more closely at the grader's notes, but for a 7.5, it's pretty nice. Flipping this on to the back for a second and zooming in, again, we have a back cover that has really no color bleed. So white all around the perimeter. That's a good back cover to have when there's minimal staining, and that's what this exhibits. Just a few flecks of foxing here, some general dirt and grime, and then those nasty spine tips. This would need to be minimized, as well as this dust shadow on the bottom of the book, though there's a tolerance for these dust shadows probably all the way up into the 9s for Golden Age books. So you don't have to be too aggressive removing these thin or slight shadows as long as they're not too dark. And this can probably be lightened with just a little bit of light treatment, as well as a touch of deep cleaning. Here, these foxing marks are subtle and go through. There's a slight spine roll here, but for a book of this age, I'm sure it's tolerated. So this looks pretty good on the back. It's probably just these heavier spine ticks, and those color breaks in the front that are the most attracting factors. So let's take a look at Grader's notes. We can see here that they call this the color is fraying. It's hard to see in these images whether or not there's what the real damage is on the spine. We probably have to look at this book from the side. So it's a bigger risk to try to buy this book sight unseen. Otherwise, it says light staining right bottom of interior. Multiple stain left bottom back cover. So the back cover has this staining, and it might need to be resolved. And so this might be tougher to get up to an 8.0. This book might have a harder path to a bump. Just looking here at the CGC scan, I'm trying to see the fraying a little better if I can see any more damage here on the spine or any type of something that's improvable. Not so fun when CGC gives you a big glare right where you need to see the defect. But otherwise looks pretty good. Going back to the heritage scan, it does sound like that there's some staining here on the back cover in this area that needs taken care of on the interior, harder to treat. In this case, it's possible the cover might have to come off to get that fully treated, but there is room to move here. If one was able to bump this book up to an 8, where would it go? Well, it looks like the value more than doubles from a 7.5 to, excuse me, I'm wrong. That's a 8.5. So the value more than doubles to get to an 8.5. Maybe it would get close to doubling if it was an 8.0. Batman 11, 6.5. Now, we've worked on this book, not this particular book, but copies of this book a number of times. This book is straightforward to improve. The reds are fugitive here, meaning you do light treatment, they really fade back, so you have to protect them. But you can see this heavy shadow here on the top edge of the book. The rest of the book looks just gorgeous. Really strong colors, beautiful. This frail black line that runs down the spine is intact. That's a little bit miscut of a book here, but and there's a bit of shadowing here on the corner. But otherwise, it's because of the shadows that are sort of part of the artwork, it actually doesn't detract too much from the book. This is a really nice book, and I'm sure it's wonderful in hand. If we flip this book around and look at the backside, I think what we're going to see is that there's some of this same sort of shadow and staining down here at the bottom. And so this is causing the grade to drop here. This certainly could be lightened, if not eliminated entirely in this white area. I don't see a lot of impact on the color, which is great. Now, these heavy wrinkles and spine stresses would have to be dealt with. Some ironing here, heat treatment, a little bit of humidity should be able to pull some of this back and minimize it. And more dry cleaning here should remove the contrast between the whiter wrinkles and the darker spine, which hopefully would minimize the appearance of this particular wear. Otherwise, just a very small wear in that red there. You do have a lost corner here, so there is a small piece missing, but CGC is often kinder on soft corners, especially in Golden Age books. This is not a soft corner. This is a missing corner, but it is still minimal. Now, we do see this dust shadow here across the top. It's possible there's a darker stripe on the inside and so of shadowing, and that may take more work. But if it was minimized on the exterior, even if it was still in the interior, could still bring this book up, I'm sure, at least a half grade. Now, the beauty of this particular book, let's just make sure there's no other problems here. Light cover tanning, moderate creasing, soiling, spine stress lines. These things are all addressable by cleaning and pressing to some degree. Not going to get a 9.8 on this book, but I mean, at 6.5, you're looking at a book that has peaked at $15,000. I'm not sure. Actually, we'll look at these prices. That's the right price here, because this book goes for a wide range of value of values. Here, even, I mean, it's been several $1,000s of value swings even in 2024. But what I would say is that if this thing even goes up half grade, what can it do? Well, at 7, you have this weird drop. The 7.0 historic price is lower than the current price. So you don't have a good comparable there. But you can see if you get to 7.5, this thing doubles in value. You find $15,000 of value just from a 2024 comparable. So can it get to a 7.5? Possibly. possibly. More fun, number 54. So this stunner, I touched on when I was scanning. It's on page 1 of the auction now. Really just a beautiful book, very sought after. For some people, this is like their favorite cover of the entire Golden Age. People question why, I think, but if you really get close to this cover, if you look at the tonality, there's layers in the way this cover is put together. That's hard to see when you see this as a thumbnail. But this book is among, again, the favorites of Golden Age collectors. There's some small defects, a slight tear here, but the colors look great. It does look like that somebody did a cleaning activity here that was not totally sanctioned by the cleaning and pressing community. So for other people, you might say, well, this looks like wet cleaning, or this looks like, I don't know what they did here, but it does look like there was some kind of mark here that somebody tried to remove, and this probably is holding the book back. I don't know if this could be faded or better handled. I don't know if there's residual mark here, or this has totally removed the yellow ink that was there. I would know more if the book was in hand, but otherwise the color along the perimeter is pretty nice. Again, there is some small tearing, but I do see dirt and grime here. I see some wear on the spine here. I see it flaking and fraying. So this would need some ironing to smooth this out and some dry cleaning to disguise it. This is probably the biggest sort of tick on the book, kind of goes in here. So this, I don't know if this can better be disguised, or this book's spine can be rolled a little bit so that it rolls back onto the edge and makes it look less noticeable on the cover here. Here's one more sort of strong tick mark, but otherwise just a beautiful front cover here with nearly all its color preserved. Really, really nice presentation. Now on the back, again, a book that does not bleed on the edges. And so what we've got primarily is a strong dust shadow or light shadow or sun shadow, whatever you want to call it. So pretty mild here on the top edge, and nice down the perimeter as well. Otherwise, we've got these strong breaks. We probably are seeing some of these stresses on the front as well, those two strong ones. So this is probably the area of worst wear. This should have some dry cleanability, and there are some wrinkles here and color whiteness changes that could probably be better disguised and a little bit more work at the staple. I'm sure these are tears here, probably harder to deal with, but I do see dry cleaning opportunities here that really could be addressed. So when you look at the CGC grader's notes here, we see that one thing we could not detect on the cover, that the staples detach in the bottom of the centerfold. Beyond that, we have light creasing and fraying. They really don't mention any tears at all. That's exciting. Can you reattach a centerfold? Many times you can. Oftentimes, it doesn't hold the book back that much, in my experience, but I don't know for sure if 8.0 is a cap with a single staple detached. Many times you can get inside the book and peel up that one prong of the staple and kind of wedge the paper under it and push the prong down. And so this might be reattachable here. Certainly at what's being asked for this book, it could potentially be worth the money. So this book's an 8.0. At 8.0, you're talking about a $33,000 book as of December 2022. We don't have comparables going beyond 2022 for the higher numbers, but we can see here that even in 2020, the 9.0, of course, this is a pedigree book, was a $40,000 book. But I mean, there's a real opportunity here. We can see for a 2024 number, 6.5 sold for $26,400. So this book will certainly beat that by a landslide. But the question is could this book get up a half grade or even a full grade? I do see potential with this book. I really do. Okay, Superman number 20. So it's hard to find a near mint book in the Superman run in the double digits. So a 9.4 Superman 20, super nice. The question is, could it go even higher? How greedy of you might be thinking. That's a pretty big demand. Well, this book's just lush. These light blue areas tend to clean up well when they're kind of contaminated with brown or tanning. And the perimeter looks really great. Again, it's got a sort of a strong dust shadow on the right edge here, but the corners look fantastic. Super light, tiny little flecks of color missing. There's a little bit of reader's creasing here in this sort of black explosion area, but otherwise it looks just so nice. If we turn to the back cover here, also a full color cover, really hard to get. I mean, you can just see it's just really, really sharp and smooth. Now you've got this white on the spine, which is good. So you really don't have the danger of these color breaks or wear going in here. This spine just looks nice. You just see a small amount of sort of shadowing here on the corner, and maybe a little bit of where wrinkling, spine stress right here, this line here. So, I mean, look, turning to the grader's notes, this is showing us that thin dust shadow I pointed out. It says large light crease top of front cover. I did not see that. And then light tanning on the interior. That should be treatable with light treatment and deep clean treatment. Now, if we go to the CGC scan for a minute, let's see if we can find that large light crease top of front cover. A large and light crease should be pressable. So I'm not really sure where that crease is. I'm assuming it's, so I see it's a tiny little bit of break here, so it's possible that it's near the spine. But I mean, a large light crease should be pressable. I kind of see one right here. It's possible this is it here. That should be pressable. So to get a Superman 20 from a 9.4 to a 9.6, it would be unheard of. It has never, ever sold at 9.6, and it last sold in 2019 for just shy of $8,000. So we're not seeing 2024 prices till we get to a 7.0 at $1,700. So this is not like a super key. It's just that in grade, it changes the game. This book has the potential to be a 9.6, in my opinion. Wonder Woman #6. So this is the first appearance of the Cheetah, a popular Wonder Woman villain. This lovely light blue book, it's got hindered by sort of browning and tanning, which is common to Golden Age books. But when this is deep clean, this book could be really vivid and bright and vibrant in terms of the blues. And the colors are still pretty nice. And the structure is great. You have a little bit of, let's pull this up here in size. You have a little bit of creasing and color breaking here at the spine. There's some kind of crease mark here. This book looks pretty clean. I don't see a lot of grime or dirt on the front. Some very light tears around the perimeter. The corner is a little bit soft, but otherwise looks really, really nice. On the back, need for dry cleaning. I mean, clearly there's grime and soiling. There's some wrinkles here that we can see whiter than the grime areas, again, which is common in Golden Age books. But this should be pressable and fixable. Now, we note that the staples aren't on the spine. When you have books like this where the staple's not on the spine, you can get wrinkling in between the staple and the spine if you use too much moisture, too much heat, you're not careful. But handwork, hand tooling could go through here and pull out more of these wrinkles, I would imagine, and certainly with dry cleaning, clean this up. Well, make sure we haven't missed anything. Nope, just moderate spine stress lines to cover is the only concern from CGC for the 7.5. Well, where are we on the grading? Well, a 7.5 for this book is a $10,000 book as of 2020. So I expect it to be more valuable in 2022, and 9.2 is 2022. 9.2 in 2022 sold for 26.4. So they're just looking for more recent sales data. Here we go. 6.5 sold for 8,600 in 2022. So I mean, I expect this book to be, well, maybe it's a $10,000 book, but at an 8, you should be able to get maybe a 40% jump. If the past is any indicator of where things could be. All-Star Comics #9, strong book. So, of course, Wonder Woman appears in #8, first appearance, very powerful book. But when you have an all-black cover like this, I mean, in a 9.0, wow. Now, I don't know what this is here on the spine, and I don't know if this would ever come out. My gut says it's probably minimizable. There's probably something that could be done here, but who knows? Because this black doesn't just easily flake off on these Golden Age books. If you start to scrape or attack the surface, it will from the side. It peels off, but it doesn't just come off right away like Fragile and some Silver Age books, in my experience. The rest of the perimeter looks just dynamite. I mean, again, there are some small color breaks here. I see a little bit of soiling. Maybe that's a tannic, but just an unbelievable, just stellar presentation. Now on the back, a little bit of stray marks and grime. Otherwise, looks pretty good. I see a little bit of damage here. Again, the staples are not squarely on the spine, but there's still an opportunity here to enjoy this book and possibly to press it up. I do see wear here. This wear would probably have to be minimized to improve this book. Could this get to a 9.2 and near mint minus? It might, if this is what the notes say is the strongest defect. So let's take a look here and see what the CGC graders notes have to say. Very light spine stress lines and very light creasing. The creasing should be removable with pressing. In terms of the spine stress lines, I'm not quite sure where we can go with this. This is the CGC scan, so I'm just going to zoom in on this and just see if it gives me any better insight. But in general, I expect that these spine stress lines can be further minimized with ironing and a bit of humidity. And this book, wow, could it get to a 9.2? I mean, could it? An All-Star Comics 9 at a 9.0? I mean, the church copy sold for $41,000 in 2021. In 2020, a Hawkeye pedigree only sold for $3,700. Who's that lucky buyer? I mean, wow. Beyond that, we don't really have comparables that are that extreme. But is Christine Farrell's complete DC collection a pedigree on par with Mile High? Maybe not, but could be right up there. And if you could get this to a 9.2, boom. I mean, basically, you set the market in 2020 and beyond. Batman 121 7.5. There are some Silver Age books in this collection. I think Heritage has been pretty selective as to what's going to get auctioned in this particular round. And at a 7.5, you have a little bit of staining here on the corner. Otherwise, the whites look stellar. Color looks good. Small little wear, a little creasing on the corner here. A bit of wear down here at the bottom. One sort of tear / tick mark here at the lower corner. You have another one here at the staple. A couple more here on the spine, some more severe stresses, and then just gorgeousness. On the back, tells an even crazier story, in my opinion. So zooming in all the way, what we see here is we saw a little bit of the stain on the front. So there's a tiny little bit of staining here, but this book, I see some foxing, which is common on this paper, the Silver Age paper. Otherwise, it looks pretty good. Just a bit of soiling and grime. When we get down here, though, overhang. This item here, this thing is hanging over a little bit. And it's got some small tears, but this little line of dirt and debris, that absolutely can go away with dry cleaning. This probably could be pressed even flatter so that these tears are even harder to see. And come on, I mean, this should be pulled off with any professional dry cleaning activity, in my opinion. And otherwise, the corners just look great. As you move up here, more soiling and handling wear and just little bits of spine stresses. You can kind of see the spine stresses as they move in here, but boy, is it subtle. So, I mean, if you could get rid of just a few of these stresses, this is a fingerprint. I mean, what's it doing there? What are these prints doing there? I mean, if you can pull that out and get this book up just a half grade, which I assert could be done just by improving this lower edge of the back cover. If you could, where's it take you? Well, there's that edge wear, bottom of front cover. We talked about that. There's foxing on the interior. We didn't see that. We have to take a look and see how severe that is. Okay? It says stain top of back cover. We'd have to pull that out too. But if we could get this book to an 8, wow, what could happen next? Well, 7.5 on this book, $7,200 in June, and an 8.0 on this book, $12,600 in January, both of this year. So we have some really good comparables for this book. This book could essentially almost double if indeed we could get that book up a single half grade. So how about that? Can cleaning and pressing improve the grade of books enough to provide significant returns on auction wins even after paying market price, paying buyer's premiums, paying for shipping, insurance, credit card fees, and all the other stuff that comes into play from auction wins? If you can, good for you. Something to think about as you plan your auction bidding for this upcoming auction in the next couple days. And if you like this video, please comment, subscribe, and you can send an email at info@comicpresser.com, and you can also follow us on Instagram at comic_presser. Hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.